came up starting with group 1.
Yeah, I can talk about my daughter. She's 4 years old, and she's often like this. I'm not angry. So all the time. When she's really angry, she says that she's not angry.
Okay, that's fine. We actually had briefly discussed about the concept of, I'm not angry as well. Okay, any more ideas we can share maybe together?
I mean, I raised the question about that some of your gestures was, in mathematics, was where the gesture replaced the drawing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's a visualization of a sort of standard object in some sense, or a relatively simple relation between two objects. But I mean, we also gesture more when we try to convey more complex and maybe not so readily visual.
And even in a more multilingual context as well, as a gesture more. Indeed. But again, you see in the beginning how I described and defined the notion of language from a more verbal, traditional, that's how it's been traditionally studied, to a more visual and gesture. Maybe it's time for us to move across the definition of a gesture. And the body language, gesture is any movement of hands and arms, basically. But maybe we should define it to more, from head to toe, any resources that we use from our head to toes. For example, a child in a classroom, which I have plenty of them in my classroom, they would say, oh, that's pretty interesting. It's moving forward. There's a change in the posture, basically. However, if I don't like what you're telling me, yes, surely in an academic profession, then yeah, that's a nice interesting point. I'm moving away from you. If I'm sitting down, there are two main factors that these techniques have apparently been used in FBIs, and it's interesting I find it. We go down, when we're comfortable, we expand out, we get bigger when we're confident. The gravity-defying behaviors, basically. However, if I don't like something, I go either down. There's another aspect to it, which I discussed with one of the teachers in our classroom. We had the new year 7s, basically, 11, 12-year-olds who come to the secondary school in the UK. I pointed out that he will be in trouble in lesson. He's like, yeah, okay. 2 weeks later, he said, how did you know? How on earth did you know? When we walk to a new classroom, you're tiny, call it the turtle effect, right? You're tiny, arms crossed is a sign of discomfort. Anyway, someone could say that they're cold, but again, being cold is a sign of discomfort as well. They're cold, and their legs goes down, basically, tries to protect themselves. They become like one solid unity item. However, this guy, arms crossed, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I'm glad he didn't do that sort of gesture. Okay. So when we're confident, we sort of expand. We expand out. And when we're not, we sort of get closer together. Try to protect ourselves, try to warm each other up. And again, often people, when they cross their arms, again, it could be a sign of cold, discomfort, protectiveness, defensive. People try to touch, sort of, yes, oh yeah. We call them self-pacifying behavior. It's going to be Daniel, it's going to be fine. You're going to be bombarded with a few questions now after this seminar. You're going to be fine. There are a few professors sitting. You're going to be fine, Daniel. Yeah. So back to your question. It's an interesting question. I'm trying to avoid after an interview, basically. So I'm glad that we got some ideas of matches and mismatches and how we can sort of incorporate it in our lesson. Yeah, so that was an interesting lesson. I really enjoyed it. Is that negative or positive? Unless you're Bulgarian, then that's a yes. Okay, so we all can generate gestures. Gestures can easily be generated in different contexts. When the concept is visual, when if it's new, when you're talking in a second language, we gesture more. But what about the interpretation or the realization of gestures? A lot of body language experts would say most body movements have various and different meaning in discourse. Okay? We shouldn't take one gesture on its own and try to interpret its meaning. Just like the term table. Table doesn't mean that. There's a mathematical table on the South African mountain. So we should always use it in context. Caro Jewett talks about often the interpretation of gesture is not well understood. Research is in the beginning of trying to incorporate gestures in a more semiotic resources. The rules of transcription is not yet well developed yet. And again, the role of gesture in communication is something relatively new. The old previous traditional way of using language and language resources. Gunther Press says there is no reason to assume that the mode of gesture in culture 1 covers the same area or the same concern, or is used for the same purposes and meanings as the mode of gesture in culture 2. Okay, so it's cross-cultural. Again, gesture is culturally given and socially shaped resource for meaning making. Okay. However, what also can be done by gesture can be used by speech in other culture. But what is important is that the fact that there hasn't been a report of a specific culture or a community of practice where people don't gesture. Okay? Okay. So I want to talk about 3 sort of well-known emblems or independent gestures or conventionalized autonomous gestures where they can be performed without the accompanying words. Emblems are gestures that have a common meaning to a specific community of people. For example, this OK sign, like that, it means good to most European countries. It means 0 worthless in France. And there are different connotations into it involved as well in different social contexts, and also completely different. It means money or coin to a Japanese person. Which is, again, that's an example of cross-cultural variation of meaning in gestures. So without the accompanying words, that it could be any of them. It could be any of them, basically. Another one is Facebook like, which is commonly used nowadays. What does it mean? It means good in most European countries. It means superb in France. Again, if I do this gesture in Iran, I would either get a slap on the face or I might get 3 girls' phone numbers. It would be one of them, basically. And again, it means 1 to Italian, uno, due, and also 5 represents 5 to Japanese. Again, I'll be coming back to this point in a bit, basically. Yes. How do we say yes? When I'm talking to people, I expect people to show me some signals, whether they can understand me, whether they don't. Often people give me a nod. If there's an interesting idea, or yeah, shut up, it's my turn to talk now. Okay. So people would give me some sort of cues, turns. Often, yes is normally associated with most European cultures from the head, from back to front. Back to front, yes. Okay. I'm not that kind of girl. Okay. However, it's completely opposite in Bulgarian cultural context. My name is Danyal Farsani. I'm a man, and I'm right now in Malmo, which is interesting, and it can bring a lot of errors and breakdowns in communication, basically. And of course, in India, the ways I'm sorry I can't perform this a gestural representation of yes from an Indian perspective. However, in Japan, a head nod doesn't mean yes, I agree with you, but it also means yes, I can hear what you're saying. Yeah. So Japanese people perform yes gesture twice, as much as twice as normal with any other nationalities, because the connotation behind it is yes, I'm with you, I can hear you. Yeah. So it's not because you're saying something really interesting to them that they're enlightened. So what I would like you to do is, can we think of a particular gesture that has different meaning, different social contexts? And what I became really interested in was in a bilingual British Iranian classroom, where that signal was used as 60. 60, why? The etymology of the term 60 in Farsi is the same as the term for thumb. So the term for thumb is exactly 60. So 61, 62, 63. So a boy conveyed the notion of 61 using this. Okay? Even though if you use that gesture outside of that particular encounter, that social encounter, you know, there could be consequences with that at school. It could be rude, it could be, you know, there are different contexts. So what I would like you to do again in the same groups, maybe, or all as one, can we discuss about gestures that mean differently, either in different cultures, in different nationalities, countries, and also within different specific communities of practice, like this example that we offered, 60, and it can be a root term, you know, and can we think about it maybe in